I saw the photos before anyone thought to call me. My son posted them from the airport, him and his wife Lauren holding matching coffee cups with that practiced casual smile people use when they want you to know they're living their best life. The caption said something about new beginnings and gratitude and closing chapters. 300 likes in an hour. My brother's wife commented with heart emojis. My cousin wrote, "You deserve this." Nobody mentioned me in the comments. I was sitting in what used to be my garage, which was now where I kept the things that didn't fit in the spare bedroom. The house was technically still half mine for another 60 days, but you wouldn't know it from how they'd rearranged everything. Lauren had moved her pottery supplies into my office. My workbench was gone. The shelves where I'd kept 30 years of tools and manuals were now displaying her collection of plants that all looked the same to me. My phone buzzed. A group text. "Hey Dad, just FYI, we moved the closing date up to the 15th. Lawyer says it's easier this way. You're still good with the storage unit, right?" I read it twice. Typed 3 different responses. Deleted all of them. "Sure," I sent back. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. "Thanks. This is better for everyone." Better for everyone. That phrase had been doing a lot of work lately. I set the phone down on the metal folding chair, my furniture now apparently, and looked around the garage. Concrete floor, single bulb hanging from the ceiling. My reflection in the window of the door that led back into the house. A door that didn't feel like mine to open anymore. The thing about being a facilities manager for 28 years is that you learn to see how things actually work, not how they're supposed to work. You learn that every system has slack in it, every process has gaps, every chain of authority has links that don't quite connect. You learn which rules matter and which rules are just there to make people feel safe. You learn what gets checked and what gets assumed. My son thought he was being clever. He'd always been smart. Grades, scholarships, the kind of kid who tested well and knew how to talk to adults in that smooth way that made them think he had his shit together. He married Lauren right out of grad school, and she was smart too, maybe smarter. They had plans, career trajectories, a timeline. I was not on the timeline. The conversation had happened 6 months ago, in the living room that used to feel like mine. My wife, Patricia, had been there. So had their lawyer, a friend of Lauren's father, which should have been my first clue. They'd laid it all out like a presentation, like they were pitching me on a new product. The house was worth more than Patricia and I had paid for it, significantly more. If we sold it and split the proceeds, everyone could move forward. They could buy something in the suburbs near Lauren's parents. Patricia and I could downsize, maybe get a condo, something manageable. "You're not getting any younger, Dad," my son had said, and he'd said it kindly, which somehow made it worse. The numbers made sense on paper. The logic was airtight. And when I'd looked at Patricia, she'd had that expression she gets when she's already made up her mind but is waiting for me to catch up. Not angry, not sad, just decided. "I think it's time," she'd said quietly. So I'd said yes. What else was I supposed to say? But here's what they didn't know about me, about the kind of work I did. I read things. Every document, every clause, every footnote. Not because I was looking for problems, but because that's what you do when you're responsible for buildings that house 3,000 people and have to stay compliant with 40 different regulatory agencies. You read the boring parts. And buried in the settlement agreement, in the section about asset transfers and timeline contingencies, was a clause about deed transfer prerequisites, specifically about existing liens and encumbrances, even more specifically about municipal service obligations. See, when you buy a house in this city, you're not just buying the property, you're buying into a system, water, sewer, stormwater management. And if you've lived in that house for more than 20 years, and if you've been the primary account holder for municipal services, your name gets attached to certain responsibilities. Boring responsibilities. The kind nobody thinks about. I'd been the facilities manager for the Municipal Services District for 28 years. I knew every supervisor, every clerk, every inspector. I knew which forms got processed automatically and which ones required manual review. I knew that when a property changed hands, there was a checklist. And I knew that one item on that checklist, subsection 14C, Utility Easement Compliance Verification, required a sign-off from the district office. My office. My former office. I'd retired 4 months ago. They'd thrown me a party, given me a plaque, told me I'd be missed, standard stuff. But here's the thing about municipal bureaucracy. It moves slow, and my name was still on a lot of documents. Not as an employee, as a verified account holder, as a reference point, as a historical contact for a property that had been in my name for 33 years. And when I'd read through the settlement paperwork, I'd seen that they'd missed it. The lawyer had missed it. My son had missed it. Lauren, with all her planning and organizing and spreadsheets, had missed it. There was going to be a review, a routine review, the kind that happened automatically when properties with long-term service accounts changed hands, and that review had a mandatory waiting period, 60 days from the date of filing. They'd filed early, trying to expedite everything, trying to close before the holidays so they could move in and start their new life and have everything perfect. They'd moved the closing date up twice, pushed every timeline, called in favors. But they couldn't push a municipal review. Those ran on their own schedule, and the review period didn't start from when they wanted it to. It started from when the property was formally released from the primary account holder's service obligation, which required a form I hadn't signed yet. I picked up my phone again. The group text was still there, my son's message. "Thanks. This is better for everyone." I scrolled back through the conversation history. Instructions, updates, changes, all phrased as questions, but really just notifications. "We're thinking," which meant we've decided. "Would you mind?" which meant this is happening. Patricia came out to the garage around 9. She had 2 mugs of tea, which was her version of a peace offering. "You okay out here?" she asked. "Yeah." She handed me a mug and sat down on an upside-down bucket. We didn't say anything for a while. That was one thing about 36 years of marriage. You learned when silence was easier. "They're excited," she said finally. "I know. It's a good opportunity for them." "I know." She sipped her tea. "You signed everything, right? The lawyer said we needed to have it all finalized by the 10th. "Most of it." She looked at me. "Most of it." "There's a form, municipal services release. I need to take it down to the district office." "When?" "Soon." "How soon?" I met her eyes. Patricia had been a paralegal before she retired. She knew when something wasn't adding up. "The review period is 60 days from when that form gets filed," I said, "not from when they want to close." She went very still. "And you haven't filed it?" "Not yet." "When were you planning to?" I shrugged. "I've been busy." "Busy?" "It's not urgent. I mean, it is, but nobody checked. They assumed it was automatic." Patricia set down her mug. "What are you doing?" "Drinking tea." "You know what I mean?" I did, but I wasn't sure how to explain it. How do you tell your wife that you're tired of being managed, tired of being handled, tired of watching your son treat you like a problem to be solved, like furniture to be rearranged, like a line item on a spreadsheet? "They could have asked," I said. "Not told?" "Asked." "They did ask." "No," they presented. They explained. They made it make sense, but they didn't ask if I wanted this. "Did you want it?" That was the question, wasn't it? "I wanted to matter," I said. I wanted someone to think maybe I had a reason for wanting to stay, or maybe I had ideas about what I wanted to do next. But nobody asked about that. They asked if I understood the market value, if I understood the tax implications, if I understood that this was a good opportunity. Is this about the house or about them? It's about being treated like I'm already gone. Patricia picked up her mug again, turned it in her hands. "So what happens if you don't file the form?" "Their closing date doesn't work. They have to reschedule. Maybe push it back 6 weeks, maybe more." "They've already booked the moving truck." "I know." "They've already given notice on their apartment." "I know." "Lauren's parents are expecting them for Christmas in the new house." "I know." She studied me. "You're really going to do this?" "I haven't decided." "Yes, you have." Maybe I had? I don't know. What I did know was that for the first time in 6 months, I didn't feel like furniture. I felt like a person holding a card nobody else knew existed. Patricia stood up. "This won't make them treat you better. You know that, right? It'll just make them angry." "They're already treating me like I'm invisible. At least this way, I'm visible." She paused at the door. "You're not invisible, you're just not young anymore, and that scares you more than it scares them." She went inside. I sat in the garage until the tea went cold. Around midnight, I pulled out my laptop, a 6-year-old Dell that still worked fine, but that everyone said I should replace, and logged into my email. I still had my municipal services account. Nobody had deactivated it yet. Another boring detail. I pulled up the form. Property Service Account Release and Transfer Authorization. Form MSD 419. Required signatures: primary account holder, district supervisor, county clerk. It was blank. I saved a copy to my desktop. Then I closed the laptop and went to bed in the spare room that used to be my son's room, in the house that used to be mine, and I slept better than I had in months. Because they didn't know. They were celebrating, they were planning, they were posting smiles, and they didn't know one detail had been missed. Before we go any further, hit the hype button, take a second to subscribe, and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? The first real conversation happened 4 days later. I was at the storage unit, a 10 by 10 space that smelled like cardboard and dust, trying to figure out how to fit 3 decades of my life into a space roughly the size of a walk-in closet. My son had suggested I prioritize, which was his way of saying I should throw most of it away. But these weren't just things. They were proof I'd existed in a particular way, that I'd built things, fixed things, known things. I was holding a manual for a heating system that hadn't been manufactured since 1997 when my phone rang. "Dad? Hey, quick question." My son's voice had that particular brightness people use when they're trying to stay calm, the kind of brightness that's really just anxiety with better posture. "Yeah? So we're at the title company, just doing the final walkthrough on paperwork, and they're saying there's a... Hold on." Muffled voices. "Yeah, they're saying there's a document they don't have yet. Something about municipal services." I set the manual down carefully on top of a box labeled Garage MISC. "Form 4 Runtine," I said. "Right. That? Did you file that?" "Not yet." Pause. Longer than it should have been. "Okay. When are you going to file it?" "Soon." "Dad, we need a specific timeline here. They're saying it affects the closing." "It does affect the closing. How?" I could hear Lauren in the background asking questions. Someone else too? Probably the title officer, or maybe their lawyer. Everyone sounded very professional and very stressed. "There's a mandatory review period," I said. 60 days from the date of filing. It's standard for properties with long-term service accounts. 60 days? Dad, we close in 11 days. I know. So what happens if you file it now? The review period starts now, which means closing can't happen until the review is complete. Silence. The kind that feels like math happening in real time. "You've known about this form for how long?" His voice had changed. The brightness was gone. "It's been on the checklist since the beginning. Why didn't you mention it?" "It's my responsibility. My name, my account. I figured I'd handle it." "By waiting until the last possible second?" "I've been busy." "Busy." He said it the same way Patricia had, but with more edge. "Dad, we have a moving truck reserved. We've already started packing. Lauren's parents are expecting us." "I understand that." "Do you? Because it really feels like you're doing this on purpose." The thing about people is they tell you who they are when they're angry. They drop the smooth voice and the careful phrasing, and you get to see what's actually underneath. My son, when he was angry, sounded like someone who'd been inconvenienced by incompetence. Not hurt, not betrayed, inconvenienced. "I'm not doing anything on purpose," I said. "I just haven't filed it yet." "Well, you need to file it today, right now." "Can't do it today. Office is closed." "Then tomorrow." "Maybe?" "Maybe? What the hell does maybe mean?" Lauren said something I couldn't make out. My son's voice got quieter but harder, the way people talk when they're trying not to make a scene in public. "Let me be really clear about this, Dad. If you don't file that form and we can't close on time, we're going to have serious problems. We've given notice on our apartment. We've made commitments. People are counting on us." "I understand." "I don't think you do. I don't think you understand that this isn't just about you being stubborn. This affects other people. Real people with real plans. Real people. As opposed to what? Fake people? Imaginary people? People like me?" "I'll handle it," I said. "When? When I can. That's not good enough. It's what I've got." He hung up. Not dramatically. Just a click and silence. I stood in the storage unit holding a manual for a heating system nobody used anymore and felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not anger, exactly. More like clarity. The kind of clarity you get when you realize you've been playing a game where everyone else knew the rules except you. I drove home, the house that was still technically half mine, and found Patricia in the kitchen. She had her laptop open and was reading something with the particular focus she used when she was researching legal documents. "They called you too," I said. "Lauren called. She was very polite about it." "I bet." She explained the situation, the timeline, the logistics. "And?" Patricia looked up. "And I told her we should have all read the settlement agreement more carefully." I stared at her. "You're on my side?" "I'm not on anyone's side. I'm on the side of contracts being honored. They rushed this. They pushed every timeline. They made assumptions. That's on them." "You said this would make them angry." "I said it wouldn't make them treat you better. But that doesn't mean you're wrong. She closed her laptop. Here's what I think. I think they've spent 6 months treating this like a transaction instead of a family. And I think they're about to learn that you don't get to control people just because you're efficient at making plans. You told Lauren that? More or less. How'd she take it? She said she needed to call her father. Great. Patricia stood up and poured herself more coffee. For what it's worth, I looked at the form. You're right about the review period. It's mandatory. And there's no expedite option unless you can prove hardship. Can they prove hardship? Having to reschedule a moving truck isn't hardship. It's inconvenience. I sat down at the table. The kitchen still smelled like the lavender cleaning spray Lauren preferred. She'd replaced all our old cleaning supplies with her preferred brands. Another small thing that had happened without discussion. What are you actually trying to do here? Patricia asked. I don't know. Yes, you do. I looked at her. I want them to notice I exist. They notice. No, they notice that I'm an obstacle. I want them to notice that I'm a person who gets to make choices, a person who doesn't just say yes because it's easier. And then what? What do you mean? I mean after they notice, after they're angry, after this whole thing blows up. Then what? You still want a relationship with them? That was the question I'd been avoiding, because the honest answer was I didn't know. What kind of relationship did I have with my son now? The kind where he called to give instructions? Where he explained things to me like I was a child who needed simple words? I want a relationship where they ask me what I think, I said, not tell me what makes sense. Patricia nodded slowly. Okay, but you understand this is going to get worse before it gets better. I know, and you're prepared for that. Was I? I'd spent 28 years preparing for problems I could see coming. Equipment failures, inspection deadlines, budget shortfalls, things with clear causes and clear solutions. This felt different. This felt like I was standing at the top of a hill and pushing a rock, not knowing where it would land. But I was tired. Tired of being managed, tired of being explained to, tired of being treated like someone who needed to be handled carefully and kept out of the way. Yeah, I said. I'm prepared. The next morning, I went to the district office. It was a squat brick building downtown, the kind of building that existed purely for function and looked like it. I'd worked there for most of my adult life, in a basement office with no windows and fluorescent lights that hummed at a frequency that gave some people headaches. I'd managed crews, filed reports, coordinated with contractors, kept systems running that nobody thought about until they stopped working. The woman at the front desk recognized me. Hey, stranger, thought you retired. I did, just need to file something. What have you got? I pulled out the form, still blank, and slid it across the counter. Service account release, property transfer. She picked it up, scanned it. This is yours. Yeah. Your house? Was. She nodded slowly. People who work in municipal offices understand family drama without needing details. They've seen enough paperwork to know that forms like this don't just represent properties, they represent lives being divided. You need this process today? She asked. No rush. She looked at me. How much no rush? What's the backlog like? For something like this? Usually 3-4 days before it hits the supervisor's desk, then another week for the actual filing. Sounds reasonable. She stamped it with the date, which started the clock officially, and put it in a wire basket marked Intake Non-Urgent. You'll get a confirmation email when it's been logged, she said, then another one when the review period starts. Thanks. I turned to leave. Hey, she called. You doing okay? The question surprised me. Not because it was inappropriate, but because it was genuine. This woman, I'd worked with her for 15 years and couldn't remember if I'd ever asked her anything personal, was checking on me. Getting there, I said. She smiled. They never make it easy, do they? No, they don't. I walked out into the parking lot. It was November, gray sky, cold wind, the kind of day that felt like waiting. My phone rang before I made it to my car. Did you file it? My son's voice, no greeting. Yeah. When? Just now. So how long until closing? Review period is 60 days from processing date. Processing takes about a week, so roughly 10 weeks total. Silence. Then, 10 weeks. Give or take. I didn't say anything. There wasn't anything to say. You knew this would happen. You knew the timeline. And you waited until the absolute last second to file it, which means we're screwed. I filed it when I could. Bullshit. You filed it when you wanted to. And you wanted to because you're pissed about something and this is your way of making everyone else deal with your feelings. I'm following the process. The process you could have started months ago. I've been busy. Stop saying that. Stop pretending this is about being busy. You're doing this on purpose. You're sabotaging the sale because you don't want to accept that things are changing. The word sabotaging hung in the air. I could hear Lauren in the background again, her voice sharp now. Someone else too, probably her father. Things already changed, I said. I'm just making sure the paperwork is correct. You're being petty. I'm being thorough. No, you're being an asshole. He hung up. I sat in my car in the parking lot of the building where I'd spent most of my working life, and I felt something shift inside me. Not anger, something colder, something harder. They wanted to treat this like a business transaction? Fine. I'd treat it like one too. And in business, you don't get to skip steps just because they're inconvenient. You don't get to ignore details just because they slow you down. And you don't get to call someone an asshole for following the rules you should have read in the first place. I drove to the storage unit, moved more boxes, found more manuals, threw nothing away, and I waited. The fourth wave came in the form of silence, not the comfortable silence of people who don't need to talk, the pointed silence of people who have decided you're not worth talking to. My son stopped calling, stopped texting. The group chat went quiet. When I checked his social media, something I rarely did but found myself doing more often now, there were photos of him and Lauren loading boxes into a U-Haul, posts about unexpected challenges, and making the best of it, carefully worded updates that told a story without mentioning details. The comments were supportive, friends offering help, Lauren's parents posting encouragement, everyone rallying around the young couple dealing with difficult circumstances. I wasn't mentioned, not directly, but I could feel the implication in every post, every comment. There was a problem, an obstacle, something making their lives harder. Me. Patricia noticed too. They're building a narrative, she said one evening. She was on her laptop, scrolling through Facebook. Look at this. Lauren posted a photo of their new rental. She called it temporary housing while we wait for bureaucracy to clear. That's accurate. It's also calculated. Bureaucracy sounds impersonal, like they're victims of a broken system, not victims of their father-in-law being stubborn. I'm not making them victims. No, but they're making themselves victims, and they're good at it. She turned the laptop toward me. The post had 73 likes and 24 comments. People saying things like, hang in there and you've got this, and sometimes things work out for a reason. Someone, I didn't recognize the name, had commented, I hate when family stuff gets complicated by paperwork. Hopefully everyone can work together. Lauren had replied, we're trying our best to stay positive. Patricia closed the laptop. You see what she did there? She didn't say you're not cooperating. She just said they're trying their best, which implies someone else isn't. Let them imply whatever they want. It's not just implication anymore. People are going to start asking questions, and when they do, the story is going to be about the difficult father who won't sign paperwork, not about the son who didn't check his timeline. I did sign the paperwork. I filed it. Eventually, after maximum inconvenience. She wasn't wrong, but I was too deep into this now to care about optics. They want to tell people I'm difficult, I said. Fine, I'm difficult. At least I'm not invisible anymore. Patricia looked at me with something like disappointment. You're becoming the villain in their story. You know that, right? Someone has to be. And you're okay with that? I thought about it. Was I okay being the villain, the difficult father, the obstacle? I'm okay with being honest, I said finally. I'm okay with not pretending everything is fine when it isn't. There's a difference between honesty and cruelty. I haven't been cruel. You've cost them thousands of dollars and weeks of stress. That feels pretty cruel from where they're sitting. They made assumptions. They rushed. They didn't do their due diligence. Those are choices they made. So you're teaching them a lesson. I'm letting them experience consequences. Patricia stood up. You keep saying that like it makes it better. But consequences and punishment look pretty similar from the outside. She went to bed early. I stayed up scrolling through my son's social media, watching him build a version of reality where he was blameless and I was the problem. Maybe I was the problem. Maybe that's what this had been all along. Me being a problem that needed to be solved, an obstacle that needed to be removed, a complication that could be managed with the right approach. But if that's what I was, at least now they knew it. At least now they had to deal with it instead of just planning around it. The next morning, I got an email from the district office. Property Service account release. Processing update. I opened it, scanned the formal language. The key sentence was buried in the third paragraph. Your form has been received and logged. Initial review indicates additional documentation may be required regarding historical service obligations. Processing time may extend beyond standard 60-day period. Additional documentation? Extended processing time? I called the office. The woman who answered wasn't the one I'd talked to before. She sounded young and harassed and like she'd rather be anywhere else. I got an email about my form, I said. It mentioned additional documentation. Hold, please. 3 minutes of hold music. Then a different voice, older, familiar. This is Supervisor Chen. I'd worked with Chen for 12 years. He'd been promoted to supervisor about 5 years ago, right around the time I was getting ready to think about retirement. Good guy, fair, methodical. Hey, it's me, I said. Oh, hey. He sounded uncomfortable. You got the email? Yeah. What's the issue? No issue. Just, look, when I saw your name on the form, I figured I should review it personally. Make sure everything was clean. Is it? The form is fine. It's just, there are some notes in your property file. Old stuff, from when you first moved in. What kind of notes? Variance requests. Permit modifications? Looks like when you bought the house, there was some work done that required coordination with the city. Easement adjustments, I think. And those adjustments are still on file as requiring sign-off if the property changes hands. The thing about revenge is that it's supposed to feel satisfying. It didn't. Patricia had been gone for 3 days. The house felt wrong without her. Too empty, too quiet, too much like exactly what my son had accused me of, living in the past, surrounded by things that didn't matter anymore. I went to work on the storage unit, not because I needed to, but because I needed to be somewhere that wasn't the house, somewhere that didn't remind me that I'd maybe pushed too far. I was moving boxes, old project files, equipment manuals, maintenance logs from facilities that probably didn't exist anymore, when someone banged on the metal door hard enough to make it rattle. I turned around. My son was standing there. But this time he wasn't tired. He was furious. That's the timeline. Don't give me that bureaucratic bullshit. You know exactly what you're doing. I set down the box I was holding. I filed the form. The review process takes as long as it takes. The review process you could have started months ago. The review process you deliberately delayed until it would cause maximum damage. I filed when I could. He stepped inside. The storage unit suddenly felt very small. Chen called me, my son said. The supervisor. He told me about the easement verification. He also told me that you called to ask about the timeline, that you knew exactly how long this would take. I asked a question. You orchestrated this, all of it. You knew about the 60-day review, you knew about the easement issue, you waited until we'd given notice on our apartment, until we'd made commitments, and then you filed everything at the exact moment that would screw us the hardest. I filed when I was ready. You filed when it would hurt us the most. There's a difference. He was breathing hard, hands clenched. I'd seen him angry before. Teenage arguments, college stress, normal life frustration, but never like this. Never this kind of cold, controlled rage. Do you have any idea what you've done? He said. Do you have any concept of how much this is going to cost us? You have savings. We had savings for a down payment, for starting our lives. Now we're spending it on rent and storage because you decided to punish us for moving forward. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm following procedure. Stop saying that. Stop hiding behind procedure like that makes this okay. You're using your knowledge of bureaucracy to hurt us, to make us suffer, and you're doing it deliberately. You made assumptions. We made plans. We did everything right. We got a lawyer, we checked the settlement agreement, we coordinated timelines, we did our due diligence. Except for one thing. One thing you knew about and deliberately didn't mention, one thing you could have told us about at any point but chose not to because you wanted this to happen. I leaned against a stack of boxes. Maybe I did. That stopped him. What? Maybe I wanted you to understand what it feels like to have your plans destroyed by someone else's choices. This is psychotic. This is consequences. Consequences for what? For wanting to buy a house? For wanting to move forward with our lives? He stared at me. You're insane. You know that? Actually insane. You didn't include me. You informed me. Because you're our father. Because we respect you enough to tell you what we're planning before we do it. You respect me enough to explain your decisions, not enough to ask my opinion. Your opinion was that you understood the plan, that it made sense, that you were okay with it. I said those things because you made it very clear what I was supposed to say. He laughed, sharp and bitter. So this is our fault. We didn't read your mind. We took you at your word instead of guessing that you were secretly resentful. I wasn't secret about anything. I was clear. You just didn't listen. When? When were you clear? When I didn't file the form immediately, when I took my time, when I didn't rush to make your timeline work. Those were all signals. Those were you being passive-aggressive. Normal people use words. Normal people also check their assumptions before making irreversible commitments. He stepped closer. We were maybe 3 feet apart now, close enough that I could see the vein in his neck, the tension in his jaw, the way his hands were shaking slightly. Let me make sure I understand this, he said quietly. You're costing us $10,000 because we didn't ask your permission correctly? I'm teaching you that actions have consequences. By making us homeless. You're not homeless. You found a rental. A rental we can't afford. A rental that's eating our savings. A rental that's destroying any chance we had of building the life we planned. Then maybe you should have planned better. His hand moved. Not a punch. Not really. More like he was reaching for me and couldn't quite decide whether to grab my shoulder or shove me. He caught himself halfway, froze, then stepped back. I can't believe you're my father, he said. I can't believe you're my son. Someone who would do this, who would deliberately hurt their own child over hurt feelings. What kind of person does that? Someone who's tired of being treated like furniture. We never treated you like furniture. You moved my stuff. You rearranged my space. You made plans for my life without asking me what I wanted. You did everything except acknowledge that I'm a person with thoughts and feelings and preferences. Because your preferences were keeping you stuck in the past. Because you were living in a house that was too big, spending your time on hobbies nobody cares about, refusing to accept that you're getting older and need to adjust. There it was. The real opinion. The thing he'd been thinking all along. So, this is about you thinking I'm too old to make my own choices, I said. It's about you being stubborn and proud and unable to accept help when people offer it. You didn't offer help. You offered instructions. We offered you a chance to downsize, to simplify, to move into something manageable, and you turned it into a war. You offered me a chance to disappear quietly. I declined. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he pulled out his phone. What are you doing? I asked. Calling Lauren. We're going to talk to a lawyer, because what you're doing has to be illegal somehow. It's not illegal to file paperwork. It's illegal to do it in bad faith, to intentionally delay proceedings, to use your position to cause harm. I don't have a position anymore. I retired. You have knowledge. You have relationships. You have access to systems and processes that we don't understand, and you're weaponizing all of it. He made the call, waited. Hey, yeah, I'm with him now. Can you call your dad's lawyer? Ask about bad faith delay tactics. Yeah, I'll be home in 20 minutes. He hung up. You're going to lose this, he said. Whatever point you think you're making, you're going to lose. Because we're not going to just accept this. We're going to fight back. Good luck. We don't need luck. We need documentation, and we have it. Texts, emails, records of every conversation where you said you'd handle this and then didn't. Evidence of deliberate delay. Evidence of me following the process at my own pace. Evidence of you sabotaging a property transaction, which is something lawyers care about. He turned to leave, then stopped. You know what's sad? I was defending you. Right up until this moment, I was telling Lauren that you were just struggling, that you needed time, that we should be patient, but you're not struggling. You're just mean. You're a mean old man who would rather hurt people than admit you're not the center of the universe anymore. And you're an entitled kid who thinks planning makes you right. At least I have a plan. What do you have? Boxes of old paperwork and a wife who left you because she couldn't stand watching you self-destruct? That hit harder than any physical blow could have. Patricia didn't leave me, I said. She left for a few days. Give it time. She'll realize you're not worth coming back to. He walked out. I stood in the storage unit surrounded by 30 years of documentation proving I'd been useful once and wondered if he was right. If Patricia was gone for good. If I'd traded one kind of loneliness for another. My phone rang. Patricia. Hey, I said. I just talked to Lauren. Her voice was flat. She told me you and your son had it out. Something like that. She also told me they're consulting a lawyer about suing you. They don't have a case. That's not the point. The point is you've pushed this to the place where your own child is considering taking legal action against you. Do you understand how completely insane that is? He called me first. He came to my storage unit and confronted me. Because you're costing him $10,000. What did you expect him to do, thank you? I expected him to take responsibility for his choices. Like you're taking responsibility for yours? I didn't answer. I'm not coming home, Patricia said. Not yet. Not until you figure out what you're actually trying to accomplish here. I'm trying to make them see me. They see you. Everyone sees you. You're impossible to miss. But the version they're seeing isn't someone they want to respect. It's someone they want to get away from. So I should just give up? Let them win? This isn't about winning. This is about deciding what kind of person you want to be. And right now, you're choosing to be someone I don't recognize. Maybe you never knew me. Maybe you never knew yourself. She hung up. I sat down on a box labeled Project Files 1995-2000 and put my head in my hands. The storage unit was silent except for the hum of the ventilation system and the distant sound of traffic. Everything in here was proof I'd been competent once, useful, good at my job, respected, but none of it mattered now, because I'd used that competence to hurt people. I'd weaponized my knowledge. I'd turned expertise into cruelty. And the worst part was, I wasn't sure I wanted to stop. Because for the first time in 6 months, people were paying attention. For the first time since this whole thing started, I wasn't being explained to or managed or carefully handled. I was being felt. Even if what they felt was anger, at least it was real. At least I mattered enough to be angry at. The lawyer's letter arrived on a Thursday. I found it in the mailbox between a grocery store circular and a credit card offer. Standard business envelope, law firm logo in the corner. The kind of envelope that means someone's decided talking isn't working anymore. I opened it standing in the driveway. Notice of intent to pursue legal action for intentional interference with contract. The language was formal and precise. It accused me of deliberately delaying the property transfer through abuse of procedural knowledge. It cited specific dates, specific conversations, specific decisions I'd made that demonstrated a pattern of bad faith. It demanded I immediately complete all required documentation to facilitate the property transfer within 14 days, or face legal action seeking damages for breach of contract, emotional distress, and financial harm. The damages were listed: rental costs, storage fees, moving expenses, lost opportunity costs. They were asking for $15,000. I folded the letter and went inside. The house was too quiet. Patricia was still at her sister's. The furniture looked temporary, like everything was waiting for someone to make a decision about where it actually belonged. I called the lawyer whose name was on the letter. "This is Martin Cross," a man answered. Professional voice, confident. "I got your letter." "And you are?" I gave my name. "Ah, yes. I was expecting your call. I assume you're calling to discuss terms?" "I'm calling to tell you that you don't have a case." With respect, I disagree. My clients have documented evidence of repeated delays, missed deadlines, and deliberate obstruction of a legally binding agreement. The settlement agreement doesn't specify timing for municipal paperwork. It specifies good faith cooperation, which includes not deliberately delaying routine procedures to cause financial harm. I filed the paperwork according to the standard process. There's nothing in the agreement that requires me to expedite it. No, but there's plenty of evidence that you delayed it specifically to cause maximum inconvenience. Text messages where you acknowledged the timeline, conversations where you admitted you hadn't filed yet without justification, a pattern of behavior that demonstrates intent. He was good. I'd give him that. He'd found the weak points. "What do you want?" I asked. "I want you to coordinate with the municipal office to expedite the review process. I want you to personally ensure that all documentation is complete and submitted within the next 7 days. And I want you to reimburse my clients for costs incurred due to your delays. And if I don't, then we file suit, and we pursue not just damages but also a court order requiring completion of the transfer, which will cost you significantly more than $15,000 in legal fees, even if you win. I'll think about it. You have 14 days. After that, we file." He hung up. I sat at the kitchen table with the letter in front of me and tried to think through the math. Could they win? Maybe. Probably depended on the judge, on how sympathetic my son and Lauren appeared, on whether I could prove I'd acted in good faith. But even if they lost, the lawsuit itself would be expensive, time-consuming, public. It would turn family conflict into legal record. It would force Patricia to choose sides in a formal way. It would make everything permanent. I called Patricia. "I got a letter from their lawyer," I said. "I know. Lauren told me they were sending it." "You knew and didn't warn me?" "I told you they were talking to lawyers. What did you think that meant?" "Fair point." "They're asking for $15,000, I said. "Plus they want me to expedite the paperwork." "Are you going to do it?" "I don't know." "What's stopping you?" "Pride, probably." "Is your pride worth $15,000? I thought about that. Was it? What was I actually getting out of this? They were still moving forward, still making plans. I'd delayed them, cost them money, made their lives harder. But I hadn't changed anything fundamental. They were still going to buy the house, still going to move on, still going to treat me like someone they had to work around. I'm tired, I said. Of fighting? Of everything. Of being angry. Of watching them build a narrative where I'm the villain. Of sitting in this house that doesn't feel like mine anymore. So stop. And let them win? There's no winning here. There's just deciding when to stop losing. Profound. I'm serious. You've made your point. They know you exist. They know you're angry. They know they should have handled things differently. Continuing this doesn't teach them anything new. It just makes everyone miserable. They sent me a legal threat. Because you've been costing them money. What did you expect? I expected them to apologize, to acknowledge they were wrong. They don't think they were wrong. They think they tried to help you and you responded by sabotaging them. And from their perspective, they're right. So I'm the villain. You made yourself the villain, and now you need to decide if you're okay with that role or if you want to try to be something else. Like what? Like their father. I looked around the kitchen. Lauren's coffee maker on the counter, her preferred brand of dish soap by the sink, her system for organizing the cabinets, color-coded labels, everything in its place. I don't think I can be their father anymore, I said. Not the way I was. Then be a different kind of father, one who knows when to stop fighting. You sound like you've already decided what I should do. I've decided what I would do, but you're the one who has to live with the choice. She paused. For what it's worth, I think you should pay them back. Not because they're right, but because it's the cost of ending this before it destroys everything. $15,000 is a lot of money. Less than a lawsuit would cost. Less than losing your family would cost. I already lost my family. No, you damaged it. There's a difference. Damaged can be repaired. Lost is permanent. You think they'd forgive me? Eventually, if you stop giving them new reasons to be angry. And you? Would you forgive me? I'm working on it. She hung up. I sat with the letter for a long time, reread it, looked at the numbers, thought about what Patricia had said. $15,000 to make this end, to stop the escalation, to admit that maybe I'd taken this too far, but admitting that meant admitting I'd been wrong. Not just wrong about the timeline, but wrong about the whole approach. Wrong to use my knowledge as a weapon. Wrong to let anger drive my decisions. Wrong to care more about being seen than about being decent. I picked up my phone, called my son. He answered on the fourth ring. What? I got the letter from your lawyer. Good. Then you know what we want. I want to talk. In person. I don't think that's a good idea. Probably not. But I'm asking anyway. Silence. Then, where? The house. Tomorrow. Just us. Why? Because I need to say some things, and I need you to hear them without lawyers or witnesses or anyone else filtering it. If this is another lecture about respect, it's not, I promise. More silence. Fine. 2:00. But Lauren's coming with me. Okay. He hung up. I spent the rest of the day cleaning. Not packing, not organizing, just cleaning. Wiping down counters, vacuuming carpets, making the house look like someone still lived there with intention. Patricia came home that night. She didn't say much, just set her bag down and started making dinner like she'd never left. You don't have to be here for this, I said. Yes, I do. It might get ugly. It's been ugly. At least now maybe it can get honest. We ate in silence. After, she took my hand across the table. Whatever you're planning to say tomorrow, make sure it's what you actually mean. Not what you think they want to hear, not what sounds good, what you actually mean. I don't know what I actually mean. Then figure it out, because this is probably your last chance to say it. The next day, my son and Lauren arrived exactly at 2. They sat on the couch that would be theirs soon, and I sat in the chair across from them. Patricia stayed in the kitchen, but close enough to hear. Thanks for coming, I said. My son nodded. Lauren's expression was neutral, guarded. I got your lawyer's letter, I said, and I've been thinking about what you want. We want you to stop sabotaging us, my son said. I know, and you're right. I have been sabotaging you. Not the way you think, maybe, but definitely in ways that hurt you. That surprised them. Lauren's expression shifted slightly. I've been angry, I continued. Angrier than I realized. And I used what I knew about the system to make your lives harder. I told myself it was about teaching you a lesson or making you understand consequences, but really it was just about making you feel what I was feeling. Which was what? Lauren asked. Invisible. Irrelevant. Like I didn't matter anymore. We never said you didn't matter. No, but you acted like my opinions didn't matter, like my preferences didn't matter, like the only thing that mattered was your timeline and your plans and your version of what made sense. Because your version was staying stuck in the past, my son said. Maybe, but it was my version, and I didn't get a vote on whether we were using it. We asked you. You presented a plan and asked me to approve it. That's not the same as asking me what I wanted. Lauren leaned forward. Okay, so what did you want? I wanted to feel like I had choices, like I was part of the decision, not just an obstacle you needed to get past. We tried to include you. You tried to manage me. There's a difference. My son started to respond, but I held up my hand. Let me finish. I'm not saying you did it maliciously. I'm not saying you were trying to hurt me. I'm saying that in your rush to move forward with your lives, you stopped seeing me as a person who might have valid reasons for wanting to stay put. You saw a problem to be solved, and when I didn't solve myself fast enough, you got frustrated. So you punished us, my son said. Yeah, I did, and I'm sorry for that. Not for being angry. I think the anger was justified, but for how I expressed it, for using the system to hurt you, for letting pride and stubbornness turn into cruelty. Silence. What happens now? Lauren asked. I pulled out my checkbook, wrote a check for $15,000, handed it to my son. This covers your rental costs, your storage, your moving expenses, everything the lawyer asked for. He stared at the check. You're just giving this to us? I'm paying you back for damages I caused. What about the paperwork? The expediting? I'll call Chen on Monday. I'll coordinate whatever documentation he needs. I'll make sure the process moves as fast as it legally can. Lauren looked at me carefully. Why? Why now? Because I'm tired of being angry. And because Patricia was right, this was never going to make you respect me. It was just going to make you hate me. And I'd rather have a damaged relationship with my son than no relationship at all. My son looked at the check, then at me. This doesn't fix everything. I know. We're still angry. We're still hurt. We still think you handled this in the worst possible way. You're right. But you're apologizing. I'm apologizing for the method, not for being angry. I think I had a right to be angry, but I didn't have a right to weaponize bureaucracy. He folded the check, put it in his pocket. I need time, he said, to process this, to figure out if we can move past it. Take whatever time you need. Lauren stood up. We should go. They walked to the door. My son stopped, turned back. For what it's worth, he said quietly, we never wanted you to feel invisible. I know, but I did anyway. That's on both of us, I think. Yeah, it is. They left. Patricia came out of the kitchen. How do you feel? She asked. $15,000 poorer. That's not what I meant. I thought about it. Lighter, maybe, or just empty. I'm not sure there's a difference. She came over and sat next to me. You did the right thing? Did I? You stopped making it worse. That's a start. Is it enough? I don't know, but it's more than you were doing yesterday. We sat there in the house that was almost not ours anymore, and I wondered if apology and restitution were enough, if $15,000 and an admission of fault could repair what I'd broken, or if some things, once damaged, stayed damaged forever. The call with Chen happened on Monday morning. I explained the situation, carefully, without mentioning the lawyer's letter or the check or the specifics of what had happened. Just said I needed to expedite the process, that family circumstances had changed, that I was ready to provide whatever documentation was needed. I figured you'd call eventually, Chen said. Yeah? Your son came by again last week. He was calmer this time, said you two had worked things out. More or less. He seemed like a good kid, stressed but good. He is. Chen was quiet for a moment. Look, I'm going to be straight with you. The easement verification? It's not actually complicated. I could have someone pull the records and clear it in 3 days if I prioritized it. So why the 3-week estimate? Because when you called before, you sounded like you wanted it to take time, and I wasn't going to shortcut the process just because someone was impatient. But if you're telling me you actually need this done fast, I do? Then I'll bump it up. Should have everything cleared by end of week. The 60-day review still has to run its course, but at least you won't have the easement delay on top of it. Thanks. Don't thank me. Thank the system for being flexible when people are honest about what they need. He hung up. The timeline had shifted. Instead of 3 months, we were looking at 10 weeks. They'd still need the rental for most of December and all of January, but they could close in early February instead of March. I called my son and told him. So 2 months instead of 3, he said, give or take. That's still an extra month we wouldn't have needed if you'd filed on time. I know. But it's better than 3 months. Yeah. Pause. Thanks for calling Chen. I said I would. I know, but I didn't actually believe you'd do it. I'm trying to do what I said I'd do. For once. Okay. He sounded tired. We're meeting with the movers on Wednesday, trying to figure out how to do this in 2 stages now instead of 1. I'm sorry. You keep saying that. Because I keep meaning it. He hung up. Patricia was watching from the doorway. Progress? He didn't yell at me. That's something. It's more than something. A week ago he was talking about suing you. A week ago I deserved to be sued. She came over and poured herself coffee. You're being hard on yourself. I cost them thousands of dollars and weeks of stress because I wanted to prove a point. A point that needed proving. Did it? Yes. But not the way you did it. I looked at her. Are we okay? Define okay. Are you still thinking about leaving? She considered that. I'm thinking about a lot of things. About whether we can keep living in a relationship where you handle being hurt by making other people hurt worse. About whether you're capable of changing that pattern or if this is just who you are now. That's not who I want to be. Wanting and doing are different things. You wanted to be respected, so you made yourself feared. That's not change. That's just a different kind of control. So what do I do? You figure out how to be vulnerable without being vindictive. You figure out how to ask for what you need without punishing people for not reading your mind. You figure out how to be a person instead of a problem. That's a lot of figuring. It's a lifetime of figuring. But you can start by not making things worse. She was right. That's all I could do now. Not make things worse. Not create new damage. Not turn apology into ammunition. Just exist as a person who was trying, slowly, to be less destructive. The next few weeks were strange, quiet. The house felt like a waiting room, somewhere you existed temporarily while real life happened elsewhere. My son texted occasionally, short updates about the rental, about storage logistics, about things that needed to be coordinated for the closing. The tone was neutral, professional, like I was a contractor he needed to work with but didn't particularly like. Lauren sent a single text. Thank you for the check. It helped. Patricia divided her time between the house and her sister's place. She was there most nights, but gone most days. Creating space. Giving us both room to figure out what came next. I spent time at the storage unit. Not organizing anymore, just sitting, thinking about all the documentation I'd accumulated, proof that I'd been useful once, competent once, necessary once. None of it mattered now. The buildings I'd maintained had new managers. The systems I'd designed had been updated. The problems I'd solved had been replaced by new problems. I was the maintenance log of my own life. Historical record, occasionally useful for reference, but not relevant to current operations. The worst part was realizing I'd known this all along. I'd known I was becoming obsolete. I'd just chosen to fight against it in the most destructive way possible. On a Tuesday in mid-December, I got a call from an unknown number. Is this you? The voice was familiar, but I couldn't place it. Who is this? Dennis, from the district. We talked at the hardware store. Right. Hey, listen. I heard through the grapevine that you're working things out with your family. Trying to? Good. That's good. I also heard... Look, this is going to sound weird, but I heard you might be looking for something to do. Now that you're retired... I'm not looking for work. Not work, consulting, part-time stuff. There's a maintenance cooperative that works with small municipalities and private facilities. They need someone who knows the old systems, who can train younger crews on infrastructure that's been around since the 80s. Why are you telling me this? Because I recommended you, and because I felt bad about what I said at the hardware store. About you being difficult. You weren't difficult. You were just trying to matter, and I get that. The offer surprised me. I don't know if I want to get back into that world. It's not getting back in, it's staying connected. Big difference. You'd work maybe 10 hours a week, show up, share knowledge, help people understand systems they inherited but don't really understand. It's not about being useful, it's about being valued for what you know. I'll think about it. They're meeting next week, Wednesday at 2, Civic Center downtown. Show up if you want. No pressure. He gave me the details and hung up. I sat with the information. The idea of being valued for knowledge instead of controlled by it felt different. Better, maybe. Patricia came home that night, and I told her about the call. Are you going to go? She asked. Maybe. You should. Even if you decide not to do it, you should go. See what it feels like to be wanted instead of necessary. What's the difference? Necessary means people need you to function. Wanted means people value you even when they don't need you. It's a better kind of mattering. Wednesday came. I went to the meeting. It was smaller than I expected. Maybe 15 people, most of them younger than me, sitting in a conference room with coffee and notepads. The coordinator was a woman in her 50s who'd worked county facilities for decades. "Thanks for coming," she said. "Dennis spoke highly of you." He shouldn't have. He said you spent 30 years keeping infrastructure running that nobody thought about. That's exactly what we need help with. We've got crews working on systems they don't understand, with documentation that doesn't make sense anymore, trying to maintain equipment that's older than they are. So, you want training. We want knowledge transfer. We want to learn how things actually work, not how the manuals say they should work. I might not be good at teaching. You don't have to be good. You just have to be honest. Show people the boring details, the things everyone assumes are figured out but actually aren't. The meeting lasted 2 hours. They asked questions. I answered. Some of what they needed I could help with. Some I couldn't. But it felt different than working had felt. It felt like sharing instead of controlling. At the end, the coordinator handed me a contract. 10 hours a week, flexible schedule. You show up when we need you, consult on projects that match your expertise. No pressure, no deadlines, just knowledge. I'll think about it. Take your time, but we'd love to have you. I drove home and found Patricia cooking dinner. "How'd it go?" she asked. "Different. Good different." "You going to do it?" "Maybe, probably," she smiled. "Good. You need something that isn't about fighting or proving points. You need something that's just about being competent." I'm not sure I remember how to be just competent. You'll figure it out. You're good at figuring things out when you're not busy being angry. That night, my son called. "Hey," he said. "Lauren and I were talking about the house." "Yeah?" "We were thinking maybe you'd want to come by once we move in. See what we've done with it. Not right away, but eventually." "You want me to see the house?" "It's still your house in a lot of ways. The bones you built, the systems you maintained. We're just living in it differently." "I'd like that." "Okay, good. We'll let you know when we're settled." "Thanks." "Also, Mom said you might be doing some consulting work." "Maybe." "That's good. You should. You're good at that kind of thing." "I used to be." "You still are. You just forgot for a while." He hung up. Patricia came and sat next to me. That sounded positive. He invited me to see the house after they move in. That's more than positive. That's forgiveness starting. Is it? It's him acknowledging you're still part of the picture. That's what you wanted, right? To matter? I wanted to be seen. You're being seen, just not as the villain anymore. I thought about that, about the consulting work, about my son's invitation, about Patricia coming home more often, about all the small ways that damage was turning into repair. "Do you think we can fix this?" I asked. "I think we can make it different. Different isn't fixed, but it's survivable." Is different enough? It has to be, because the past version of us doesn't exist anymore. We can either build something new or keep mourning what's gone. I'm tired of mourning. Then stop. Start building instead. She was right. The house was almost theirs. The timeline was set. The damage was done. All that was left was deciding what came after. I signed the consulting contract the next day, started work the following week, and slowly, carefully began to figure out how to be useful without being controlling, how to share knowledge without weaponizing it, how to matter without making other people small. It didn't fix everything. My son was still distant. Lauren was still polite but guarded. Patricia was still figuring out whether she wanted to stay married to someone who'd shown her his worst self. But it was better than fighting, better than revenge, better than being the villain in my own life. And for now, better was enough.